Every single day, our universities are just buzzing with brilliant ideas. But have you ever stopped to think about what happens to all that incredible work once graduation day is over? Well, today, we're going to dig into a study from Bangladesh that tackles that exact problem, looking at the super important shift from physical libraries to permanent digital archives.
And look, this isn't just a challenge for Bangladesh. It's something we're all grappling with. I mean, think about it. We create and share information at a dizzying speed, digitally. So how do we make sure all that amazing work from our brightest minds doesn't just, vanish into thin air?
So, the modern answer to this problem is something called an institutional repository, or just IR for short. And the easiest way to think about it is like a university's digital treasure chest. It's basically this online archive that gathers up all the research, the theses, the publications, everything that faculty and students produce, and it preserves it and shares it with the entire world.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this study. The researchers really wanted to get a snapshot of what these digital libraries actually look like in Bangladesh's public universities. So, what did they find? Okay, so the study focused on the country's 42 public universities. And these aren't small places, right? We're talking about major hubs for research and learning, churning out tons of intellectual capital year after year. So the big question is, how many of them have actually built one of these crucial digital treasure chests? And the answer is just 13%. Yep. Out of 42 major institutions, only a tiny handful have actually set up a digital archive. I mean, that's a pretty shocking number, isn't it? It immediately makes you ask two things. One, why is that number so low? And two, for the few that do exist, what's actually in them?
Okay, so let's zoom in on that 13%. The study took a really close look at 7 of these early adopter universities to see, how they're actually doing.
And this is where things get really, really interesting. What you're seeing here is a comparison of how many records, we're talking theses, research papers, that kind of thing, are in each of those 7 repositories. Just look at that difference. You've got 1 or 2 that are clearly way out in front, and then the others are, well, they're lagging way, way behind. It's pretty clear they're not all built the same. And this just drives that point home perfectly. So on one hand, you've got the Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology, or BUET, leading the charge with over 4,700 records. But then, at the complete other end of the spectrum, Rajshahi University's library had, wait for it, just 8 records. 8. The gap between those two is just massive. So we've established there's a huge gap in how much stuff is being saved. But the next logical question is, what kind of stuff are they saving? This next chart starts to give us a clue, but let's break it down even more. And wow, this is probably one of the most revealing parts of the whole study. It turns out that a whopping 90%, 90, of everything being preserved are master's theses. Now, don't get me wrong, that's incredibly valuable work, but what it tells us is that so much of the other intellectual life of the university, things like faculty research, key data, important papers from conferences, most of that just isn't making it into the digital archive.
So what about the tech behind all this? What's actually running these digital libraries? Well, the study found that pretty much all of them are using a software called DSpace. And the key thing here is that it's open source. That means universities don't have to shell out big bucks for licensing fees. So that makes it a really accessible choice, which is great. But as we're about to see, just having the software, that's only the first piece of the puzzle.
Which, of course, brings us right back to that huge question from the beginning. Why aren't more universities doing this? And for the ones that are, why are they struggling so much? Well, the study pinpointed several major roadblocks. It's not just one thing. It's a whole mix of problems. For starters, you've got institutional issues. A lot of the time, the people in charge at the university just don't see how important these archives are. Then you have the tech hurdles, right? Things we might take for granted, like a steady power supply for the servers, or having enough expert IT staff to run everything. And then there's this cultural barrier, which is really interesting. Some researchers are actually hesitant to share their work openly. They're worried about it being misused or even plagiarized. Okay, so it's one thing to point out all the problems, but that's only half the story. The really great thing about this study is that it also lays out a clear blueprint for what to do next. So, what are the solutions? The recommendations really give us a clear path forward, and they tackle each of those challenges we just talked about head on. First, you've got to start at the top. You have to get the university leadership on board and make them see the value. Once you've got that, you build the foundation.
get the infrastructure right, like reliable power, and hire the experts you need. Then it's about building the right culture, really encouraging this idea of open access. And finally, the study suggests creating a national body to oversee the whole thing, to support these efforts and create some standards. It's a really comprehensive plan. But it's so important to remember, this isn't just some abstract academic exercise. The authors connect this entire project to a much, much bigger national goal. They say this work is absolutely essential for achieving the government's vision of building a digital Bangladesh. It's a powerful reminder that preserving knowledge isn't just a nice to have. It's a fundamental part of building a modern digital nation.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This study gives us a fantastic snapshot of what's happening in one country, but this challenge is truly global. And it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? What incredible research, what important history, what vital knowledge is being created right now in your own community? And what's being done to make sure it doesn't just disappear forever?